KWT slaying.
What if the truth was never lost, only buried? For centuries, historians, scholars, and even colonial records have confirmed what many tried to silence. The original Israelites were a black people scattered across continents but never erased. Their skin was dark, their customs ancient, and their covenant with Yah eternal. This journey uncovers how the Spanish and Portuguese Jews, described as dark-skinned, Semitic, shared one bloodline. Chased by the Inquisition, many fled to Portugal, then beyond, preserving their heritage across borders. But the story doesn't end in Iberia. Across from West Africa, black Jews built synagogues, kept Torah, and passed down the laws of Moses. The Limba in southern Africa, the Igbo in Nigeria, the Beta Israel in Ethiopia, tribes across the continent boldly declared, "We are the children of Israel." These aren't isolated claims. These are voices rising from the dust, connected by oral histories, Torah traditions, and the unbroken rhythm of their identity. No such legacy exists among European Jews. No centuries of tribal witness, no matching traditions, no trace of ancient covenant keeping. Maps, art, and archaeology tell the same story. The Israelites were scattered, enslaved, and displaced, but never lost. The world always knew who they were. Their presence was visible, their customs alive, their story intact. This book doesn't speculate. It confirms the Israelites were black, bound by blood, culture, and covenant to the Most High. This is not just history, it's restoration. The truth was never destroyed, only buried beneath centuries of deception. Get your copy of They Always Knew We Were Israelites today, available now on Amazon.com.
Salam, my family. Salam, how y'all doing today? Hope you're blessed and highly favored. So once again, before I get started, give me one if I sound okay, two if I don't. Okay, great. So before we get started with this, if you haven't looked at some of our older videos, historical videos dealing with, our time during the Inquisition, we got videos on the Inquisition, we got videos on the Sephardic Jews, we got videos on a whole bunch of stuff that you may have missed, because I'm not going to go through the process of validating and confirming that the Sephardic were black or Negroes or African, or that the Jews of Spain and Portugal were black folks. I'm not going to go through all that again, right? If you don't know that by now, I suggest you go look at my videos, or you may want to go look at, maybe, Dante's videos. He's done some recent stuff on it. So you all might want to do that, because I'm not going to be building from the foundation again. You have to have a foundation. And, I had a Gentile trying to debate me about the Carthaginians being white, because he wanted to prove that the Jews were white. And then I showed him that the Carthaginians were considered dark. And then he tried to throw some other stuff at me. He tried to say that the Tuatha De Danann is European and the Tuatha De Danann is the tribe of Dan. You know, that's the foolishness, right? And oh yes, and Minister Teyu's book on the topic. Definitely, thank you, Minister Teyu. Yeah, definitely get Minister Teyu's book on the topic if you want to know. All right. So anyway, he was trying to say that Tuatha De Danann, which is the tribe of Danu, and which is a goddess, right? A European goddess, and you know, I'm like, dude, that's not even a Semitic language, dude. And so, anyway, so you know, I gave him my video on who the real tribe of Dan was. What do y'all think I heard after I gave him the video that shows who even the Ashkenaz say the tribe of Dan is in Africa? What do you think the response I got from him after I gave him that? Thank you. Thank you. Yes, silence. Crickets. Yeah, I was waiting for the color don't matter. But it's just silence. That's how they do. They run. They run. But you know, my whole point is, if you're gonna come over here, you best be ready to fight. And I'm like, come on, you're not gonna catch us like you're gonna catch the camps, right? You're not gonna catch us with sources that you can't verify, right? You're not gonna catch us just straight up making things up, gaslighting and lying. You're not gonna do that here. It's not gonna happen. Right, it's not gonna happen. I'm like, you might, if you want to go prove somebody wrong and make, you know, it's easy to prove wrong. Just go over to the camps, and then they got a lot of stuff they make up, right? But we don't do that here, right? So you pick the wrong channel to try to fight, right? Because you're gonna lose every single time, right? All right, so let's get started. So we're gonna talk about the Inquisition, and from my viewpoint, that nothing has ever changed. Nothing has changed. The whole world has been deceived, right? The whole world has been gaslighted. Nothing has ever changed. What was is what will be. There's nothing new under the sun, right? And we see it today. But hey, most people don't realize it. You know why? Because guess what? You're not going to know till you do the research. I'm sorry. It's sort of like the people who still at this point deny that we're the people of the book. Right, you don't know because you don't want to know. Okay, that's just the fact, right? Even the Wisdom of Solomon says, you know, Wisdom of Solomon 5 says they're gonna be like, they're the people. Yes, we are, because Gentiles can't handle it. And the whole thing, when you look at this whole dynamic, right, it starts to make sense, right? How the Most High says, you know, many are going to come into me in that day and say, Lord, did we not do this in your name? And in your name cast out devils and do many wonderful works. And he going to say, depart from me, ye workers of iniquity. I never knew you. Perfect imagery of Christianity. And more specifically, right-wing MAGA Christianity, European Christianity, more specifically, not, but all of Christianity, because whether or not it's being taught by a black church or not, it is still Eurocentric doctrine. So, you know, not to hate on my brothers and sisters who happen to be melanated, who's still in that place called the church. But, you know, you don't know because you don't want to know. And some of you say it doesn't matter and color doesn't matter. Well, we never brought up color. What we bring up is ethnicity. What we bring up is covenant. What we bring up is a family. Right, but y'all want to go to the no more Jew Greek. Color don't matter. Hey, boo, boo. Okay, fine. We've been down that road. But come with me down this road, because this is the conclusion that I've reached. Okay, this is the conclusion that I reached. You can agree with me or not, right? Eat the meat, spit out the bones. I know some of y'all don't like that. Eat the meat, spit out the bones. I mean, that's just life, right? So let's get started.
Donald Trump loves a fight. If it's not China, it's Canada. If it's not the media, it's someone else. And now he's picked a new target, which is Nigeria. It's a country in West Africa, home to more than 220 million people, divided between Muslims and Christians. President Trump says Christians are being killed in Nigeria in large numbers, and he's accused Nigeria's government of failing to stop the quote-unquote Islamic terrorists. And he's warned that the US could strike if the killings continue. The US could strike Nigeria if the killings continue. Nigeria, on the other hand, has dismissed the charges. Abuja says there is no Christian persecution. It says Donald Trump is twisting a complex reality. The violence in Nigeria is real, but it is rooted in poverty, power, and land, not religion, or so Nigeria claims. Still, Trump's words have sparked a diplomatic storm. It has left many asking, is he planning to start another war, this time in Africa?
Donald Trump has found a new target. This time, it's Nigeria. The U.S. president says Christians are being killed there in large numbers in the country. He accuses Nigeria's government of failing to stop the Islamic terrorists. He warns the United States could strike if the killings continue. He also threatened to cut off American aid and said Washington was ready to go in guns a-blazing.
Could be. I mean, a lot of things I envisage, a lot of things. They're killing record numbers of Christians in Nigeria. And they have other countries very bad also. You know that part of the world very bad. They're killing the Christians and killing them in very large numbers. We're not going to allow that to happen.
His comments came after Washington put Nigeria back on countries of particular concern list. It is a watch list for nations accused of violating religious freedom. Other countries on it include China, Russia, Pakistan, and North Korea. Trump's war secretary said Washington was preparing for action. But in Nigeria, the response to Trump's threat has been cautious. Its president, Bola Tinubu, says the claim of Christian persecution does not reflect reality. He says religious freedom and tolerance are central to Nigeria's national identity. Officials say Trump's words are being viewed as political, not literal.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there because understand is that, you can look at this with a high level view and think this is all about the oil, right? And I'm not going to say it's not about the oil. I mean, it's always about the resources, right? Venezuela is about the resources, right? I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that the excuse, right, the excuse for going on to the continent is terrorism. And remember, I showed you a few years ago that, they had a scenario that they ran of there would be this attack in New York by some terrorist extremists in Africa, and that they would invade Africa to go after the terrorists. Now, you know as well as I know, the whole point of this is greater than, just what we're seeing. And what we're seeing right now looks like it's after the oil and after the Sahel. Now, I'm going to have to say, I do believe that they're after the Sahel. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. They are after the Sahel because, Ibrahim and them are separating themselves from the global community and the control of the West. But at the same time, when you look at all of this, there's more to the game because like I've mentioned in the past, right? Just from what you see on the surface isn't everything that you see, right? Because on the surface, you're going to see the iceberg, right? But below the surface of the water is more of that iceberg, right? So there's more to this. And notice the connection, right? Notice the connection of not only the potential threat to the continent of Africa and the Sahel nations, but also the use of Christianity as their righteous moral reasons for going into Africa, right? There's nothing new under the sun. But I contend that all of this is tied to, like I have a video called The Second Inquisition. I've come to the position that the Inquisition never ended. technically, you could probably say it's the Second Inquisition because they claim that the Inquisition ended. I think that is a facade. Okay. All right. So let's look at it.
Are you okay?
All right. We'll mute that till. Let's see. There we go.
So why did you talk about wanting to kill Muslims? So you're a Catholic priest. Why did you talk about wanting to bomb mosques? Have you anything to say about what you wrote in those chat rooms? Sir, this is your opportunity to say something.
All right, so Father Mark Rawls was arrested by counter-terror police for extreme right-wing activity on social media. A Catholic priest who admitted discussing bombing mosques and shooting black people in the head in a neo-Nazi online chat room has been sentenced to a 12-month community order. So he only got community service. Other people get jail time. All right. Father Mark Rawls, 57, went by the name Skinhead Lad 1488 in a chat room called Aryan Right Killers to write offensive messages about Muslims. On Thursday, Rawls, who gave his address as the presbytery of St. John Lloyd Catholic Church in Cardiff, admitted 3 counts of sending menacing or offensive messages using the Telegram app in May and June 2024. He will serve 150 hours of community service, pay £199 in costs, and be bound by a criminal behavior order for years. All right. So, emphasis on this part. A Catholic priest who admitted discussing bombing mosque and what? Shooting black people. All right. Shooting black people. Just a coincidence? Maybe. Maybe not. Understand this. There was a cardinal, and I showed it in one of the previous videos, right, who he was pro CK. Y'all know who CK is, right? Last name Kirk. And you know, he was crying and how CK was such a great man and everyone should model and follow him. This was a Catholic cardinal, right? Supporting what? Right-wing extremism. Supporting Nazism. Now we got a Catholic priest who's a neo-Nazi. Coincidence? No. Because Christianity is white supremacy. Well, Jacoba is just the Catholics. You haven't proved yet that it is the Christian religion. Well, can we say MAGA? I'm just asking. I don't need to prove the MAGA side. We all know MAGA's racist, all right? So let's continue on. Because what I'm going to talk about is how everything comes full circle. The Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. Well, if we take that literally, that there's nothing new under the sun, then what's happening is a repeat of something that happened in the past. I contend that all of this stuff is part of a larger plan that happened over a few hundred years ago. Never ended. Same like with the Illuminati plan, right? And the Catholic Church is tied to that. The Revelation 2939s are tied to the, plan of the Illuminati, right? The protocol, all of this. I told you that the people were fighting are Anglo-Saxons. The Anglo-Saxons are related to the Visigoths, who are also tied to the Nazis, who's tied to the Aryans, who are the same people persecuting us today, who are descendants of Roman Catholicism. The same one that enslaved us to begin with. But you think I'm making it up? Is Catholicism the same as Christianity as a whole? Is it the same as European Christianity? Well, on the surface, there's some changes. There's some shades of gray. But we see that the root is racism against black folks, against the Ezra Alawi, against Negroes. Don't get it twisted. Let's look at a few things that happened. So the limpieza de sangre, Spanish, also known as limpieza de sangue, Portuguese, literally cleanliness of blood and meaning blood purity, was a racially discriminatory term used in the Spanish and Portuguese empires during the early modern period to refer to those who were considered to be old Christians by virtue of not having Muslim, so no Muslim blood, Jewish, no Hebrew Israelite blood, Romani, no Gypsy blood, they were black too, I hope you know, or Agoti ancestors. In both empires, the term played a major role in what? Discrimination against suspected what? Crypto Jews or crypto Muslims. So it makes you think then that some of these Muslims were crypto Jews, some of the Jews were crypto Jews, some of the Romani, the Gypsies, were crypto Jews, the Agoti, crypto Jews. We're going to go somewhere with this. Over the years, it manifested into law, which excluded new Christians from almost every part of society. New Christians, conversos, new Christians, can we say conversos? Come on. All of you who've been following this channel for a while, y'all know. The statutes of blood purity were a legal discrimination mechanism in the Crown of Castile, Crown of Aragon, and the Kingdom of Portugal directed against the new Christians. Can we say black Jews? Oh, I know the Gentiles gonna have a problem with me calling them black Jews. Go watch the other videos. Y'all late. Y'all like what? 7 years late? Directed against the new Christians, conversos, black Jews, a group comprising of Jewish, converts, and Moriscos minorities. Now, y'all know that some Jews by ethnicity were what? Muslims. Y'all do know that, right? Some of the Moors were black folks who were Jews, and we've talked about that. Go watch the other videos. We proved it. I'm not going to rehash what we've already gone through. They emerged following the revolt led by Pedro Sarmiento in Toledo, 1449, which resulted in the Sentencia Estatuto. They were contested by ecclesiastical sectors as they implied that baptism was insufficient to erase sins or ensure spiritual equality, contradicting Christian doctrine. The statutes of blood purity, keep that in mind, the statutes of blood purity were based on the belief that the body's fluids, and especially blood, transmitted a certain number of moral qualities from parents to children, and that Jews, black Jews mind you, as a people were incapable of change despite their conversion, as stated by Friar Prudencio de Sandoval regarding the holy and prudent blood purity statute of the Toledo Cathedral, 1555, which served as a model for all subsequent ones. Who can deny that in the descendants of Yahudim persists and endures the inclination to the evil of their ancient ingratitude and ignorance? Talking about you black folks. Just as in black people, the inseparable accident of their blackness, because Jews are black anyway. A Jew may descend on their sides from gentlemen or old Christians, but a single bad lineage infects and ruins him because by their actions in all respects, Yahudim are harmful. All right, so by default, they hated us, right? Keep that in mind as well. Now, y'all remember this, right? In America. Now, let me know. Give me a 1 if you think this is coincidence, what I'm about to show you. Give me a 2 if you don't. The one drop rule. Y'all remember that, right? Y'all remember the one drop rule. The one drop rule was a legal principle of racial classification that was prominent in the 20th century United States. It asserted that any person with even one ancestor of black African ancestry, one drop or black blood, is considered black, Negro, or colored in historical terms. It is an example of hypodescent the automatic assignment of children of a mixed union between different socioeconomic or ethnic groups to the group with lower status, regardless of proportion of ancestry in different groups. The one drop rule, compare that to the limpieza de sangre, which is the same thing, right? One drop rule. All right, it's the same thing. Now, I know some of y'all gonna say, well, but you can't prove that they got it. Maybe they just followed it. Maybe they didn't. Maybe it wasn't a continuation of the limpieza de sangre. Maybe it wasn't maybe it's coincidence, as my sister Talisha said. Maybe it's a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. The auto-da-fe. An auto-da-fe, from Portuguese auto-da-fe or Spanish auto-da-fe, was a ritualized or public penance carried out between the 15th and 19th centuries in condemnation of heretics, apostates, and especially Yahudim. It was imposed by the Spanish, Portuguese, or Mexican Inquisition as punishment and enforced by civil authorities. Its most extreme form was death by burning. The Inquisition was officially established to root out heresy, particularly among conversos. Once again, crypto Jews. Crypto Jews coming up again. Crypto Jews what? Convert to what? Catholicism. Repeat after me. Crypto Jews convert to Catholicism. They were concerned about the mixture of the blood. Well, if they were the white folks who were Revelation 2939, it wouldn't be an issue because they're white anyway. Obviously, the issue is a little bit of black gonna make the white cream turn dark, right? So the Inquisition was officially established to root out heresy, particularly among conversos, Jews and Muslims who had converted to Christianity but were suspected of secretly practicing their former faiths. It was mainly Yahudim. We know that from the very beginning in John Ogilvy's book, right? They were converting them to Catholicism. They say Christianity, some translations, it was Catholicism. Ain't nothing new under the sun. We're dealing with it again. Why do you think that Candace Owens is a Catholic? Why do you think Russell Brand is a Catholic? Why do you think J.D. Vance is a Catholic? How come all of these Catholics are rising to prominence and visibility? I'm just saying, is this not a, modern Eurocentric Assembly of God type of evangelical nation now? Think about it. In the 14th century, Dominican and Franciscan priests called on Christians to expel the Yahudim from Spain, blaming Yahudim for social problems and stirring the Christian majority to destroy synagogues, burn Yahudim alive, and impose forced conversions. Yahudim would be forced to attend sermons and have Christian preachers outline what Christians viewed as errors of their ways. Now, it just so happens that we have an accusation against immigrants, and they're the first targets. Then we have an accusation against the black immigrants, the African immigrants, the Haitian immigrants, all leading to black folks, African Americans. Can we say diversity, equity, inclusion? Can we say CRT, critical race theory? Can we say SNAP benefits? All of the social problems are black folks who are the true Yahudim. Same thing again. Repeating the same thing again. Nothing new under the sun. It's the Yahudim fault. It's black folks' fault. And look, I know I'm going to have some Gentiles come in here and try to say some stuff. He don't know what he's talking about. Go watch my other videos. Go watch my other videos. Because I'm not going to hold your hand. New laws segregated Yahudim population. Hey, question, family. What does Trump want to do to us? Come on now, family. What does Trump want to do to us today? New laws, once again, segregate the Negro population. I'm sorry, the Yahudim population. No, I'm not sorry because it's the same. New laws segregated the Yahudim population and limited the occupations that were still open to them. Is that not what's happening today? Limiting the occupations for black folks? Come on now. Ain't nothing new under the sun. with the ultimate goal of conversion. Y'all need to be Christian. Oh, Trump is first of all, Trump said he never asked God for forgiveness. Trump said, I'm not a Christian. Y'all remember that, right? Give me one if you remember Trump saying he not a Christian. But yet he's so concerned with Nigeria. Oh, the Nigerians being killed. I gotta go be the hero and save the Christians, the black Christians, the African Christians, the Negroes. I gotta go save them. Put on my S on my shirt. Fly over to Nigeria, land on the continent of Africa, and invade the Sahel. That's the plan. It ain't got nothing to do with that, because if he cared about Negroes and Christians being killed, he'd go over there to the Congo. He'd go over there in the Sudan and help them out. Is he going over there? No. Why? Because he's trying to get close to the Sahel. Don't get it twisted. That's why I told you, it ain't just oil. That's a byproduct. Oil is a byproduct. They want to get to Ibrahim. And they don't want you to have no place to run. You Yahudim who live in America. They don't want you to be able to escape and run to Africa for protection. That's why you got all of those rat and the coons over there on the continent who sell out to the Western powers like a root and a toe. This uniformity brought with it new sources of anxiety. The mistrust of Yahudim as an outsider gave way to an even more alarming fear of converso as an insider. The differences between religious classes have formerly been very clear. Laws and customs codified Christian dominance in Spain. Now we got Christian dominance in America. Once the Yahudim converted, however, many Christian Spaniards believed that they no longer knew whom they could trust and who could possibly be a treacherous heretic at heart. In an attempt to assuage these fears, limpieza, that's the blood covenant, right? That purity of blood, no Negro blood or Yahudim, right? Which is the same. In an attempt to assuage these fears, the limpieza de sangre, purity of blood, laws were put in place that traced the bloodline of Christians, new and old, to see if they had Yahudim ancestry. Why? Discrimination, one drop rule. That's why if you gave a 2, you wrong. In doing so, Spain divided its Christian class among ethnic and religious lines. Sound like America, right? Racism. Othering those with Yahudim blood, much as it had prior to conversion. Influential Christians believed that there was something different in the essence and soul of the person that could not be cured by religious conversion. With these laws came the resurgence of blood libel. Now, isn't it interesting that once again, right, it's all pointing to the cause that they say is Yahudim, all black folk. And like I say, I know I got Gentiles listening. Go watch the other video. Y'all gonna be coming and gaslighting me and throwing stuff in there because you don't know nothing. You ain't do no research, not a lick. So the whole thing is that one drop rule, right? And it's happening again. Think about it for a second. If you don't think it's happening again, why do you think Trump and them are talking about, and look, I'm not for it, but why do you think Trump is talking about interracial marriages being illegal and states get to decide? One drop rule. Limpieza de sangre. One drop rule. It's all happening all over again. And who's doing it? The Christians. Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation. It's all happening again. On November 1st, 1478, Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile received permission from Pope Sixtus the fourth, the fourth, to name inquisitor throughout their domains in order to protect Catholicism as one true Christian faith. Now we got ICE. I'm just saying it's not going to be identical, but we got the enforcers. Is this coincident? The decree originally applied to the crown of Castile, the domain of Isabella, but in 1483, Ferdinand extended it to his domain of the crown of Aragon, although the fay became quite popular throughout the Spanish realm, competing with bullfights for the public's attention and attended by royalty. Though Ferdinand's action met with occasional resistance and resulted in the assassination of the Inquisitor Pedro de Arbus by converted Yahudim, in 1485, between 1487 and 1505, the processing and trying of more than 1,000 heretics, that was Yahudim. Some Yahudim by blood were Yahudim, right? Jewish, right? And some were Muslim, right? And we've gone through that, proving that some of the Moors who were what they classify as Saracens or Muslims were Yahudim. I'm not going to go over that again. All right, so let's move on. So we're going to connect this. We're going to move forward in history and see that, we had this whole thing about the one drop rule, right? The purity of blood. And we're going to look at things that happened while we were here as slaves. You're a slave, Neo. Slaves in America. Now, this is the Black Code, the Code Noir. The Code Noir initially took shape in the 15th Edict of 1685, although subsequent decrees modified a few of the code's provisions. This first document established the main lines for the policing of slavery right up to 1789. The very first article expels all Yahudim from the colonies. They're expelling all Yahudim from the colonies. So some of the Yahudim were here already before 1619. Yahudim played a significant but hardly dominant role in the Dutch colonies of the Caribbean region. Oh, so they had some Yahudim in the Caribbean. But were not allowed to own property or slaves in the French colonies. Why? Because they were free men. They were freemen. They were Yahudim who were black, who were freemen, who could own some things, but they wanted to get rid of them. Oh, like I said, go watch some of the older videos, you'll be able to catch up. The edict also insisted that all slaves be instructed as Catholics. What? The edict also insisted that all slaves be instructed as Catholics and not as Protestants. So, Candace Owen is a Catholic. Russell Brand is a Catholic. J.D. Vance is a Catholic. Everybody you're seeing rise up now are what? Catholics. Why? Because Catholics are rising in power and influence. Why? Because they're tied to the Roman Empire. Why? Because they're tied to the people in the Middle East who are converted Romans. The edict also insisted that all slaves be instructed as Catholics and not Protestants. For the most part, the code concentrated on defining the condition of slavery, passing the condition through the mother, not the father, and establishing harsh controls over the conduct of those enslaved. Slaves had virtually no rights, though the code did enjoin masters to take care of the sick and the old. Question to you, family. A question. In the earlier times of the Inquisition, Ferdinand and Isabella and all them, Emmanuel, who were they trying to convert to Catholics? Who were they trying to convert to Catholicism? What group of people were being fought? They're called crypto what? Jews. Crypto what? Yahudim. You think it's a coincidence that as we were carried over to the Caribbean, carried over to the Americas, that we were forced to convert to Catholics, to Catholicism? Is that coincidence? What happened was the Inquisition followed us everywhere. And that's why the Jews, the true Jews, the Negroes, the African Americans, the blacks were forced to convert to Catholicism, not Protestantism, but Catholicism. Why? Because they are the ones who started it all. And it continues today. That's why you have so many blacks, I'm going to say it that way, in Louisiana who are what? Catholics. Because why? It was a French territory. And the blacks could not be anything but Catholics. That's why when I was growing up, they had Sunday laws. You could not do any work on Sunday, the day of the sun. You think it's a coincidence, Gentile, that they tried to convert or force conversion on the Yahudim in Iberia? They call them crypto Jews because they converted to Catholicism but still practice their faith. Oh, all of a sudden they do the same to the enslaved and say, guess what? You can only convert to Catholicism. So they have these conversos who were enslaved Jews. Oh yeah. Well, Jacoba, why were they expelling the Jews from the Caribbean? Think about it. If you got enslaved, not free people like free Moors and free Jews, black folks, Negroes, you had free Yahudim who escaped the Inquisition or came over here before the Inquisition, and France wanted to get rid of them. Why? You can't have free Jews, black folks, practicing in the Caribbean and in the Americas while you forcing the enslaved Jew or Yahudim or Negro into Catholicism. You can't have the real Yahudim who are free in the Caribbean, in the colonies, practicing Judaism, if you want to call it that. I don't like to call it that. And have the enslaved Yahudim, who y'all call Africans, coming there and forced to convert to Catholicism. It's a conflict. You can't do it. All of this is happening again. Trump is doing the same thing, but this time it's global. This time he's targeting Nigeria. Why? Because he's really going after the Sahel. But guess what? It is a global phenomenon. Yes or no, family? Give me a yes or no. Was the Inquisition at that time a global phenomenon? Yes or no? And now we have it again. Another Inquisition, you can say, but the Inquisition, in my opinion, never ended. It never ended. Expulsion of Jews from Spain. The expulsion of Jews from Spain, formalized by the Alhambra Decree of March 31st, 1492, was a royal edict issued by the Catholic monarchs Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile, ordering all practicing Jews to leave their kingdom and territories by the end of July that year unless they converted to Christianity. Once again, Catholicism. What did the Code Noir say? The slaves can only convert to Catholicism, not Protestantism. We know during this time, the ones enforcing the Inquisition was Catholicism. I have another question. So during this time, we have the Inquisition, babies being separated from their parents, right? Land being confiscated, taken from the owners, the Yahudim, right? We had this whole thing going on during that time, right? And all of a sudden, who else shows up? 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. It just so happens that Columbus just decided to go look for some new lands. In the decades before 1492, successive crises had already thinned Spain's Yahudim population through violence, forced conversion, and legal discrimination. Legal discrimination. Let me ask y'all something, family. Let me ask you something. Yes or no? If the Yahudim during the time of the Inquisition were them people in the Middle East, Revelation 2939, you think they could discriminate against them? All you would have to do is dress up like a Spaniard. All you would have to do is dress up like a European, take off the clothes, take off the hat, right? You could hide amongst the Europeans if the Yahudim were European. In order to discriminate, there got to be something that you can't hide, like being black. Negro features. I know y'all can't stop this, Gentiles. You want to, but you can't stop it. In the decade before 1492, successive crises had already thinned Spain's Jewish population through violence, forced conversion, legal discrimination. In the aftermath of the 1391 massacres, large numbers of Yahudim converted to Catholicism. Just like we saw with the black codes for the enslaved who happened to be Jews or Yahudim, the true Yahudim. Continued attacks produced about 50,000 additional conversions by 1415. Authorities suspected that some conversos continued to practice Judaism in secret. Can we say Negroes? Concerns over such Judaizing helped motivate the creation of the Spanish Inquisition in 1478, which investigated cases of heresy and in some instances used torture and imposed penalties up to execution for the unrepentant. Growing limpieza de sangre, purity of blood statutes. What? Why? Because it's Negro, one drop rule. In the 15th century, further stigmatized new Christians, conversos of Jewish descent. Ain't nothing new under the sun. Discrimination allowed today under Trump. Christianity taking over under Trump. Catholicism is rising as the influence within this nation once again. Why? Because it is a global enforcement of the Inquisition. In the past, I called it Inquisition 2.0. I just say a more reinforcement or reviving of the enforcement of the Inquisition that ain't never died. They told you the Inquisition ended in the mid 1800s. No, it never ended. It never ended. As late as 1800, most slaves in the U.S. had not been converted to Christianity. In the years that followed, however, widespread Protestant evangelism, emphasizing individual freedom and direct communication with God, brought about the first large-scale conversion of enslaved men. Now, they say this, right? Now, didn't we just read, yes or no, that they could only be converted? Now, this was in Louisiana, mind you, the colonies of the French, to Catholicism. So, I'm assuming this is in the other parts of the United States. At first, itinerant ministers captivating large audiences at revivals and camp meetings across the North and South during the middle part of the century reached only a small percentage of the slave population with their calls to Christianity. Larger numbers of black men and women were converted during the resurgence and intensification of revivalism during the Second Great Awakening of the late 18th and early 19th centuries. At that time, Baptist and Methodist ministers appealed to the slave and free black populations, preaching a plain-style message of hope and redemption, while also catering to manners of worship that African men and women carried with them to America, including spirit possession, call and response singing, shouting, and dancing. Now, think of this for a second. It just so happens, once again, we move from the Catholicism conversion, right, which mainly happened in the territories or colonies of the French, right? Catholicism enforced, like Louisiana. And then these other territories, probably the British territories, which had more Protestant influence. But yet the same goal has been to convert the enslaved or the conversos, the Yahudim, into new Christians. Same thing. Different avenue, different tactic, different group, same methods. It's the same thing happening today. This is why nothing happens in your churches. You hear the same sermons every day. Your tomorrow gonna be better than your yesterday. How to find a man. Why? Because you are being controlled by the same system, which is the top-down religious instruction from Rome, which is Catholicism, which who controls the Inquisition, who just let up on the reins a bit. They let up on the reins a bit. Louisiana Code Noir, to regulate relations between slaves and colonists. The Louisiana Code Noir, or slave code, based largely on that compiled in 1685 for the French Caribbean colonies, was introduced in 1724, remained in force until the United States took possession of Louisiana in 1803. The code's 54 articles regulated the status of slaves and free blacks. and Yahudim, because they're the same people. As relations between masters and slaves, the entire body of laws appear below. Decrees the expulsion of Jews from the colony, as I explain why. Makes it imperative on masters to impart religious instruction to their slaves to control their minds. Permits the exercise of Roman Catholic creed only. Let me repeat that. Permits the exercise of the Roman Catholic creed only. Every other mode of worship is prohibited. Negroes placed under the direction or supervision of any other person than a Catholic are liable for confiscation. Now, understand, during that time, right, we were being forced to be Catholics. They say Christian. Same thing what they were doing in Iberia during the Inquisition, the conversos, forcing black Jews to convert to Catholicism. And notice it says permits the exercise of the Roman Catholic creed. Do y'all know what the Roman Catholic creed said? Give me a 1 if you know what the Roman Catholic creed said. Give me a 2 if you don't. Oh, we got a number of 2s. Y'all need to go back and watch my other videos, family. I shouldn't have these many 2s sitting in here. You know that, right? Y'all got to go back and look at the other videos, the history videos. And I'm going to sum it up for you. Basically, the Roman Catholic Creed said this. Any laws that come from the religion of the Jews, we reject. Any feast days that come from the religion of the Jews, we reject. We follow the feast days of the Catholics. Any Sabbath or rest days that the Jews follow, we reject. That's why you got Easter on a different day than Passover. That's why you got baptism in the word rather than the feast of purification or the rites of purification. They say that they reject anything from the apostles, which is the religion of the Yahudim and their culture and traditions and heritage. So we have this, once again, this overarching nemesis. And the nemesis is called Roman Catholicism, which hasn't disappeared. See, that is the seduction of religion. It can morph, it can change its face. It can call itself Catholicism, Judaism. It can call itself Romanism. It can call itself whatever. It can put on a new face. But the root is the same. Well, you know, Jacoba, Protestantism isn't the same as Roman Catholicism because Luther was protesting the Catholic Church. Yeah, on indulgences, not on the rest of the beliefs. Y'all know that Martin Luther hated Negroes too, right? Y'all know Martin Luther hated Yahudim too, right? Y'all hope you know that, Gentile. See, this is what happened when you don't have access to information. They could tell you whatever they want. If you ignorant and you got a computer in your pocket, a computer in your home, it's your fault that you still ignorant and you don't know. We didn't know any better because we didn't have access to information. But as the scripture says, knowledge would increase. Now we got all the information we need. It's your fault that you don't know. It's your fault for closing up your ears. It's your fault for being willingly ignorant. The enemy is still Rome. Rome has never let loose. They just gave you a few links in the chain. You started getting managed by directors and different managers like the United States or the UK or France or Belgium or Germany. You started getting managed by managers. The Inquisition, the management of it moved from the inquisitors to their European allies. Christianity today is Catholicism. Religion is Catholicism. Just wait till I come out with what I'm coming out with. It's going to show you how diametrically opposed what you call Christianity is from the true faith. It's going to show you how diametrically opposed even what we call, I ain't going to even go there because I might get in trouble, is from the true faith. Y'all know, read between the lines. The Dumb Diverses. Dumb Diverses, while different, is a papal bull issued on June 18, 1452 by Pope Nicholas V. It authorized King Alfonso V of Portugal to fight, subjugate, and conquer those rising against the Catholic faith. I wonder who that could be. And struggling to extinguish the Christian religion. I wonder who that could be. Oh, they tell us. Namely, the Saracens. Now, they say the Saracens are Muslims. They say the Saracens are Muslim. You know what? Didn't I tell you? Those who are a bloodline, who are Yahudim, Israelites, Ezra Alawi, some of them converted to Islam or were Muslims. Some were still practicing the original faith. Some became Christians. Those rising against the Catholic faith and struggling to extinguish Christian religion, namely the Saracens and pagans in a militarily disputed African territory. Now let's ask ourselves a question, family. Who are the pagans? What is a pagan? Is it Rome? Because Rome was pagan. Rome is still pagan. They celebrate Christmas. They eat pork. They celebrate Easter. Who the pagans? Oh, I'm going to go somewhere later. Y'all ain't ready for what I'm coming with. I'm telling you, you ain't ready. Who the pagans? In militarily disputed African territory. Oh, so they calling people in Africa pagans. Oh. I'm going to hit y'all straight between the eyes with what I'm coming with. You watch. The whole world's been deceived. The document co-signed warring enemies that lost to perpetual servitude. Did not the Pope say we're going to be perpetual servants? Y'all think they let us go? Well, you know, Jacoby, you could buy a house, you could buy a car, you can do that. Yeah, but I don't have rights to self-determination. I can't decide what food where I'm going to buy my food from or grow my food. I can't decide where I want to live without them giving me permission. I can't travel where I want to travel without getting permission. No, you a slave, Negro. Oh, I'm sorry, Neo. This and the subsequent bull, Romanus Pontifex, issued by Nicholas in 1455, gave the Portuguese what they saw as moral justification to freely acquire slaves along the African coast by force or trade. Now, that's what Trump is doing now. Getting moral justification to go into Nigeria, to go in there and take over Nigeria's oil, to take over the Sahel. Give him moral justification to enslave the Israelites on the continent in West Africa. Don't get it twisted. I don't care if you're a Nigerian and you don't know you are Ezra Alawi. You are. I don't care if you live in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. You don't know. You think you African. No, you not. You a Negro. You a Ezra Alawi Negro. You an Israelite Negro. The edicts are thus seen as having facilitated the Portuguese slave trade from West Africa, as having legitimized the European colonization of the African continent. What did I tell you that the colonizers were? Just managers. Just managers. Europe was just a manager. France was just a manager. Belgium was just a manager. Germany was just a manager. France was just a manager, managing all of the oppression and control of the Israelites. It never disappeared. And the same thing is happening today. Did not Pope Nicholas tell the Europeans to fight, to subjugate, and conquer those against the Christian faith? Anybody who's against the takeover of Catholicism is against the Christian faith. What did UK do? Went through conquering, subjugating. What did the US do? Subjugate, conquer, fight. What do France do? Fight, subjugate, conquer. What does Germany do? Fight, subjugate, conquer. I tell you that it never ended. And who has been subjected mainly? I'm not saying other nations weren't, because they were. But who was mainly subjected? Both land and people, which you call Africans. The true Ezra Alawi Israel. I know some of y'all don't want to do your homework, but if you go watch our videos, you won't have any doubts. But hey, I know you're not going to do it. Why? Because a lot of y'all hearts are hardened. Let's go. All right. So this is Nicholas Ulrich, the King of Tars. Portrayals of blackness and Islamic ignorance. Given the rendering of Islam in the text, however, assuming that readers would not judge others based on skin color and their rigorous religiosity is terribly naive. Whitaker reads the Sultan's continued violence as a lesson about lingering spiritual blackness. But could this not equally be a lesson like the 14th, 15th century Spanish concept of the Jewish conversos? Black Jews, mind you. In the Sultan's religious, cultural, or potentially biological taint, and even if the author achieves his complex task of redirecting the moral metaphor, is it responsible to make a black Muslim a symbol in this way? I find much of Whitaker's analysis to be opposite. Well supported by evidence in that it delineates an important strand in the text. Whitaker, however, might be overemphasizing the spiritual symbolic potential of the Sultan and underemphasizing the Sultan's portrayed Saracenness. What? The Sultan's portrayed Saracenness and the historical context. Are you thinking he's saying the Sultan's Saracenness as in terms of his Islamic belief or his Muslimness? No. Let's continue on just a little further. It will clarify what Saracen means. My reading differs from Whitaker's primarily regarding the centrality of the author's anti-Islamic bent and the importance of the animal imagery, the Sultan's violence, especially as contrasted to the King of Tars, in efficacy in battle and the historical context. The Sultan is not just black. Hold on. Didn't they say his Saracenness? Didn't they just say his Saracenness? The Sultan is not just what? Black, but is what? A black Muslim. So that's his Saracenness. A black Muslim? See, they just won't say Islam. They just won't say Muslim. No, his blackness. He's not coded to be African, so he's not thought to be African. Why? But he's black. But he's simply black. His Saracen is black, blackity, black. I'm black, blackity, black. And of the utmost importance is that the Sultan, qua Muslim, is cast as the moral villain. Why? Because he's black. And of the utmost importance is that the Sultan, qua Muslim, is cast as the moral villain. For Whitaker, the black dream hound that might represent the Sultan allows for flexible renderings of the relationship between morality and outer appearance. But this is just one instance of a larger pattern in the poem of connecting Muslims and dogs, making them out to be uncontrollable animals. Saracens are referred to as dogs on 4 different occasions, and the Sultan is often compared to unruly beasts. To be a Saracen is to be dog-like. But it's also to be what? Blackity, black. And they're comparing a black Muslim to a dog. Just like they have the bywords for the Ezra Alawi. So Saracen is black. They want to conquer the black nations. So what we see is that Catholicism, when during the Inquisition in Iberia and Spain and Portugal, they were forcing Jews to convert to Catholicism. And they were referred to as crypto Jews. Crypto-Judaism is the secret adherence to Judaism while publicly professing to be of another faith. Practitioners are referred to as crypto-Jews. Now, they just so happen to make the slaves taken from Africa convert to Catholicism in the French colonies. Coincidence? The term is especially applied historically to Spanish and Portuguese Jews who outwardly profess Catholicism, also known as conversos, Moranos. That Moranos word, you don't want to go there, do you? Can we say colored? Can we say tawny? Can we say ruddy? Or the Anuism. The phenomenon is especially associated with medieval Spain following the massacre of 1391 and expulsion of the Jews in 1492. After 1492 in Spain and 1497 in Portugal, officially they no longer existed. Officially, the Yahudim no longer existed after 1497. Okay, so if officially the Yahudim no longer existed after 1497, I wonder what they were called, family. Can you give me a guess, family? I don't know. What do you think they called the Yahudim since they were officially no longer existed? I wonder what they called them then. Could it be Negroes? The Spanish Inquisition and the Portuguese Inquisition were established to monitor converted Yahudim and Muslims. And you notice it's always Jews and Muslims. You notice that it's always, why? Because who took over Europe? It was the Moors, right? Which was Jews and Muslims. We talked about that. We proved it already. And their descendants for their continued adherence to the Christian faith and practice with severe penalties for those convicted of secretly continuing to practice their original beliefs. Information about secretly observant Jews largely survives in Inquisition cases against individuals. And look, when you go and look at the history, you will go and see that the quote-unquote Yahudim, the Jews in Iberia, in Spain, and Portugal, were sent to Sao Tome, which is in Africa, were sent to Angola, which is in Africa, West Africa, which is where we get these slaves from who could only convert to Catholicism, which what we see during the time of the Inquisition in 1492, they could convert to Christianity, or what we call Catholicism. So the conversos were these black Yahudim, and as they were enslaved, taken from Angola, taken from Sao Tome, taken from West Africa, and brought to the Caribbean, and brought to, oh yeah, let's not talk about Brazil yet. A lot of the Brazilians, they are Yahudim. They are Sepharad. They're Sephardic. That's why they get beat up and deleted every day. Did y'all hear what happened recently in the favelas in Brazil? Yes or no? They done killed like 137 people in the favelas in Brazil. Why? Because the Inquisition never ended. The Inquisition never ended. Now, this is from a book called History of the Reign of Ferdinand and Isabella the Catholic. Prescott Williams, 1796 to 1859. All right, so this page 446. To obviate this, an ordinance was published Let me start at the top. Tranquility was now restored throughout the wide borders of Granada. The banner of the cross floated triumphantly over the whole extent of its wild sierras. In broad valleys and populous cities, every Moor in exterior at least had become a Christian. Every Moor, why? Because some Moors were Jews. Every mosque had been converted into a Christian church. Still, the country was not entirely purified from the stain of Islamism, since many professing their ancient faith were scattered over different parts of the Kingdom of Castile, where they had been long resident before the surrender of their capital. The late event seemed to have no other effect than to harden them in error, and the Spanish government saw with alarm the pernicious influence of their example and persuasion in shaking the infirm faith of the new converts. To obviate this, an ordinance was published in the summer of 1501 prohibiting all intercourse between these Moors and the Orthodox Kingdom of Granada. At length, however, convinced that there was no other way to save the precious seed from being choked by the thorns of infidelity than to eradicate them altogether. Let me read that again. At length, however, convinced that there was no other way to save the precious seed from being choked by the thorns of infidelity than to eradicate them altogether, the sovereigns came to the extraordinary resolution of offering them the alternative of baptism or exile. Now, they didn't want the seed to mix. Why? Because of what? The one drop rule. Why? Because the limpieza de sangre, purity of blood. Same thing. Y'all think all of this is a coincidence? They issued a pragmatica to the effect from Seville, February 12, 1502, after a preamble duly setting forth the obligations of gratitude on the Castilians to drive God's enemies from the land, which he in good time had delivered into their hands. And the numerous backslidings occasioned among the new converts by their intercourse with their unbaptized brethren, the act goes on to state in much the same terms with the famous ordinance against the Jews, that all the unbaptized Moors, we know the Moors were black, in the kingdoms of Castile and Leon above 14 years of age, if males, and 12 if females, must leave the country by the end of April following. Now, my question to you, fam, this whole immigration thing, you think this is a coincidence? They just had to start with the Mexicans first because they were illegals. But we had the same thing happening again. Why? Because now Trump is going after birthright citizenship. Now Trump has put military in black cities. For what? What do you think? I told you they're getting us out of here one way or another. Why? Why are they getting us out of here, Jacobo? Why do they care? Why can't we stay? The one drop rule. You got a whole bunch of Negroes out there sleeping with white girls. And them white girls love them some chocolate. Don't get it twisted. They admitted this. And that's why they're making interracial marriage illegal. I ain't got a problem with it personally. You can call me racist all you want. I'm Torah only. The Bible say don't mix. I'm with it. But understand, they are losing the reproduction rates. Not only are the brothers hooking up with their women, our women was also hooking up with their men. Let me go back up to here. In his good time had delivered into their hands, and the numerous backslidings occasioned among the new converts by their intercourse with their unbaptized brethren, the act goes on to state in much the same terms with the famous ordinances against the Jews, that all the unbaptized Moors who were black in the kingdom of Castile and Leon above 14 years of age, if males and 12 if females must leave the country by the end of April following. Why? Because you can reproduce at that age. That they might sell their property in the meantime and take proceeds in anything save gold and silver and merchandise regularly prohibited. Now, my question to you is this. Y'all think it's a coincidence that they crashing the economy, getting rid of this whole SNAP benefits, right? And people going to lose their jobs, already losing their jobs. They're going to lose their land, their property. And according to the WEF, Klaus Schwab, you're going to own nothing and be happy. That they might sell their property in the meantime and take the proceeds in anything save gold and silver and merchandise regularly prohibited. And finally, that they might immigrate to any foreign country except the dominions of the Grand Turk in such parts of Africa as Spain was then at war with. Obedience to these severe provisions was enforced by the penalties of debt and confiscation of property. They coming for your property. I told you they coming for your property. You ain't gonna have no job. They shut down the whole economy. You ain't gonna have no food. Tell me this not an Inquisition. Y'all can't see above the horizon? Did I not say they're gonna push you out? This stern edict, so closely modeled on that against the Jews, must have been even more grievous in its application. For the Jews may be said to have been denizens almost equally of every country, while the Moors, excluded from a retreat among their countrymen on the African shore, were sent into the lands of enemies or strangers. Does that not sound like the Bible? You're going to be sent amongst the nations as slaves amongst your enemies, and Moors and Jews. I told you, Jews are Moors. Some Jews are Moors, and some Moors are Muslim. I'm just saying. The former, moreover, were far better qualified by their natural shrewdness, commercial habits for disposing of their property advantageously than the simple and experienced Moors, skilled in little else than husbandry or rude mechanic arts. We have nowhere met with any estimate of the number who migrated on this occasion. The Castilian writers pass over the whole affair in a very few words, not indeed, as is too evident, from any feelings of disappropriate approbation, but from its insignificance in a political view. Their silence implies a very inconsiderable number of immigrants, a circumstance not to be wondered at, as there were very few probably who would not sooner imitate their Grenadian brethren in assuming the mask of Christianity than encounter exile under all the aggravated miseries with which it was accompanied. Now, my question to you, yes or no? Can you not see the comparative nature or the similarities between what happened during the Inquisition and now? Right? The oppression of the Ezra Alawi, black folks, Negroes, right? The blaming us for DEI and CRT and the crash of the economy, and how come we're not protesting? Can you not see the similarities of why they want us gone? Because their seed is being reduced, right? And they're not procreating like they should. So you got the one drop rule, right? They're discriminating against us again when it comes to jobs. Trump has made it legal for segregation, just as they did to the Jews. Do you think this is all coincidence? They turned up the heat. Because, part of me want to say Inquisition 2.0, but it's not. The Inquisition never stopped. This is the deception. That and the fact that they hid who we were. But they had to. They had to hide who we are, because guess what? The Gentiles wouldn't have fought against the Most High's people. They had to hide who we were. They could not take over the world and conquer and conquer and conquer in the name of Christ. Because they had to get rid of us. Why? Because they had to be the moral authority. If the Yahudim were still in power and influence when it comes to the faith, and people looked at us when it came to the faith, then they could not go conquering and to conquer. They could not be the Esau or the Edomite that they are. They couldn't do like Satan, kill, steal, and destroy under the name of the Messiah. Well, they say Christ or Jesus, which isn't his name. So they had to hide who we were. They had to erase us. They had to take over our identity, and they had to take over what we call the faith, whether it be Christian or whether it be, I'm going to say it like this, Yahwism. Y'all could put the J. And so it just so happened, right, during that time, what we had. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right? 1492, the Jews were expelled from Spain and Portugal. I contend that Israel, the Yahudim, were being hunted around the world by Christopher Columbus. Did not the dumb diversers say, fight, conquer the pagans? Did they not say the same thing about the conversos? And they didn't believe them because they were still practicing their faith, claiming to be Christians. But some of the Yahudim escaped. Some of the Yahudim came to the Caribbean, which is why you had some of those free Jews. The enslaved ones came from Africa. But the free Jews were already here, some of them. Christopher Columbus believed his voyages were profoundly tied to eschatological destiny, a belief system centered on the final events of history. His correspondence with the Spanish crown explicitly mentioned prophecy and the redemption of Zion or the recapture of Jerusalem. See, they had a different eschatology than us. Divine messenger, Columbus saw himself as a messenger of the new heaven and new earth, chosen by God to fulfill biblical prophecies, particularly those found in the book of Isaiah and Revelation. Funding a crusade, he was very open in his writings, including his journal and personal compilation titled The Book of Prophecies, about his aspiration to use the wealth generated from his enterprise of the Indies to finance a final crusade. Now, let's stop right here for a second. And I got to be careful on how I say this. So give me a one if you read about the Crusades and you know about the Crusades, and give me a two if you don't, of how they were trying to conquer Jerusalem for the church. Because these people are slick. Don't get it twisted. Let me tell you what I think happened, family. Come on, put your ear real quick so I can whisper this to you real soft like, so it don't go nowhere. Tell you what I think happened in 1948. Y'all want to hear? Say yes. Y'all want to hear what I think happened in 1948? I think 1948 was the success of the final crusade. Instead of going in there with guns and bullets and trying to force them out, they came in through a refugee situation. I told you, I believe those people are Romans. I believe that's why they tied to Gomer, tied to the Germans, which was tied to Rome. tied to Onkelos, who's one of the converts from Rome. They conquered what they call Jerusalem, the promised land. This was their goal to begin with, and they got it. Don't get it twisted. I play chess, my brother. Oh, yes, it's a chess move. I can see the moves, though. Funding a crusade, he was very open in his writings, including his journal and a personal compilation titled The Book of the Prophecies, about his aspiration to use wealth generated from his enterprise of the Indies to finance the final crusade. 1948 was the final crusade in a different form. Specific exhortation. Well, look, let me say this. Why do you think that place in the Middle East are friends with America? Why do you think the same people who enslaved us and the ones who conquered West Africa and most of Africa, right, who are descendants of the Roman Empire, support each other? Why do you think the people, Revelation 2939, support America and America support them? Why do you think the Western nations support them? Why? Because they're the same people. Why? Because it was part of the final crusade. Specific exhortation to the crown in his diary entry from December 26, 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. He wrote that he wanted to find enough gold for the monarchs to undertake and prepare to go conquer the Holy Sepulchre. For thus I urge your highness to spend all the profits of this my enterprise on the conquest of Jerusalem. They conquered it. Look at Gaza today. They conquered it, but a different way. Millenarian conclusion. Columbus believed that the conversion of all peoples to Christianity and the Christian reconquest of the Holy Land were necessary preconditions for the second coming of the Messiah and the final apocalyptic battle. He even calculated the world's age based on biblical chronology. Now, my question to you is this. Does this not sound like modern Christianity to you? Columbus believed that the conversion of all peoples to Christianity, that's what Christianity believed, right? And Christian reconquest of the Holy Land, is that not what MAGA Christians want? And even some non-MAGA want the reconquest of the Holy Land and set up the necessary preconditions for the second coming of Christ, like what? The third temple being rebuilt, the sacrifice of the red heifer. Is this not what Christians want? To bring about Armageddon? To bring back the return of Christ? Could this be the reason why the Bible refers to it as Antichrist? It has a form of godliness. It looks like Torah, but it's not Torah. The Bible says that Yahuwah was sending a strong delusion that if possible, even the very elect could be deceived. Now, how do you get to the point where the very elect could be deceived? Because it's something similar or close to the true faith. Why does the Antichrist sit in the temple of Yahuwah, claiming to be him, because just like the Pope did, he says he's vicar of God. Why do we see in the book of Revelation that they cause all both rich and poor, free and bond to receive a mark in the right hand forehead, that they won't be able to buy, trade, or sell unless they have that mark, and force them to worship? Worship who? A false Christ. That's why it's Antichrist. Because people don't take the time to look at the Torah to see what it says. And you really do have to spend time in it. That high level reading ain't gonna do it. Study to show thyself approved, a workman that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. You're not going to find it unless you study. I look at these things and I say, man, this deception is huge. I'm like, this deception been going on for like centuries. And guess who the center of it? Roman Catholicism and the Yahudim, the slaves. We are their test. Gentiles, we are your test. Y'all failing. How do I know it's Christianity that's the false religion? Well, one, just read it compared to Torah. Two, look at who's oppressed the true chosen. Three, look at the fruits. Killing, stealing, destroying, hypocrites, lying. Becoming alphabet saying, God gonna forgive me. He know my heart. Y'all don't know him, do you? Obedience is better than sacrifice. See, everybody playing church, playing mores, right? Setting up gatherings, but your heart ain't right. You ain't serving Yahuwah. You ain't loving his people. You're not putting the people first. Some of y'all just doing what you doing, taking from the sheep, but you ain't teaching them nothing. You ain't teaching them the whole truth. And then you're going to say Gentiles can't be saved. Y'all going to be in trouble. Who are these people that say, Lord, when did we see you in prison and not visit you? When did we see you hungry and not feed you? And he going to say, what? When you did it for the least of these, my brethren. Lord, didn't we do all these wonderful works in your name? I'm just saying, who is that? Who is that? Christians. Why do you say it's Christians, Jacoba? Because they don't obey Torah. And they don't do to others what they want done to them. Y'all support people in the Middle East, and them people taking out babies and mommies and daddies and grandmas. Y'all support them pew-pewing us into the streets. Y'all support them discriminating against us in healthcare and food. Y'all support them discriminating against us in job and labor. But y'all think y'all gonna enter the kingdom? It's more than likely you gonna fulfill the prophecy, depart from me, I never knew you. How do we know him? That we keep his commandments. Y'all say the law's done away with. You ain't got to listen to me. I'm telling you now. We leaving. I say this with confirmation. I can't tell you when, but we out of here. You ain't got to believe me. I don't care. I don't care if you're an Israelite. You ain't got to believe me. I don't care if you're a Gentile Christian. I don't care who you are. You ain't got to believe me, but we going to be leaving. I'm telling you. And all the people who've been around for a long time, your grandmas, your grandpas who lived to old age, a lot of them, they're passing on. You know why? Because the Most High said, sometime when they taken, it's for their good to protect them from what's coming. Can you imagine? When you go back and you see the Most High, and you see your great-great-grandma and your great-great-grandpa and all the family that you love, you grew up with, your sisters and your brothers you lost, You're going to be restored. You're going to see the patriarchs. You're going to see them black Africans, Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. The people you grew up with, who cooked that food, grandma and them, grandpa and them, when things were a lot better, and the Most High restores that to you. Not everybody gonna make it, because the Bible say there's few that's gonna be saved. And see me, I don't do that. Put your head down and let's say the sinner's prayer. That's what Christians do. I say repent. Believe the gospel. You need to look at that too. Believe in Yahushua. Be baptized. See, Christians just tell you to say the sinner's prayer. Y'all say that. Y'all go down and y'all still racist tomorrow. Y'all still whoremongering tomorrow. Y'all still alphabets tomorrow. And y'all think y'all getting it. Oh, I love me some Jesus. Yeah, because the one you follow, which is religion, don't require nothing of you. It don't require holiness. It don't require set apart. But that shows you don't know Torah. Because Israel is a set apart people. You only have, I know, of all the nations of the world. The Most High chose one people. He chose one land. He chose one Savior, Yeshua. You must attach yourself to an Israelite. Don't get it twisted. You got to believe on Yeshua first. The Bible says you're going to attach yourself because you're going to say, I hear that Yah is with you. Can I come with you? Why? Because we are the covenant people. See, this is the problem with Christianity. Y'all don't understand covenant. And I'm going to say it like this. In my opinion, we going home soon. This is my opinion. However you want to measure that. However you want to measure that. But when I say we going home soon, that means your judgment is here. That means y'all, I'm talking about the ones who oppressed Israel. Your judgment is here. You're going into slavery. But I didn't do nothing, Yacoba. No, your ancestors did. And y'all didn't restore. I don't believe in reparations because I had nothing to do with it. That's fine. We don't care. The Most High is going to restore. I'm telling you, that's all part of it. If you stole my bike and gave your bike to your children, I pass away. And my children say, hey, that's my daddy's bike. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry I stole it. But you ain't never gave it back or gave back the amount to restore, to make whole. That ain't repentance. But you ain't got to listen to me. I'm just a black man. I don't know nothing. You see how Yacoba preach? He's not a Christian. No, I'm not. Some of the Israelites say they Christians. I am not a Christian. I'm a follower of Yahuwah. Don't want to be a Christian. I can't believe I was in that thing called Christianity. Why? Because that's a religion. You know how long it took me to wake up from Christianity? A long time. I had to work through what they teach and what they say and what they do. I had to look at their fruit. I had to see where they went astray. I had to look at their history to see what they believe. I had to read the Constantine creeds. I had to read Nicaea, and I see it. And I saw it was apostate. But y'all about to find out. Everything I see and everything, look, I'm going to tell y'all like this. When I see stuff like this, when my gut shows it and it makes sense to me, I'm right. We ain't got long. Measure that as you want. I don't put no dates, no time. Something's about to change, and soon. And everybody ain't going to make it out. This is my way of calling you to repentance. I'm not going to say the sinner's prayer. No, seek the Most High. Seek the truth. Repent and be baptized. Stop playing this church stuff. Because our Father coming to get us. Period. Love y'all, family. If you want to support us, you can. You could become a patron. You could go to tailministries.com, click on the donations tab. You can see other options for giving. You can also give Cash App, $TOTW7101. You can also like, share, and subscribe. Also, I really suggest that you reach out to your family members because something's about to happen. Peace out. Love y'all with the love of the Messiah. Peace and blessings, Israel. Your captivity is ending. Well, family, the wait is over. The moment has arrived where truth emerges triumphant from the shadows of history. Introducing the true Jerusalem, the lost kingdoms of the Israelites. The groundbreaking work by me, Jacoby Vale. A journey into the past that reshapes the future. I cut through centuries of misconceptions with piercing clarity. This book delivers a compelling case packed with evidence that commands attention and gonna get some respect. Come with me for a second, family, and discover how these thrilling civilizations flourished, protected by towering highlands and sustained by advanced engineering. Some have asked, where is Jerusalem? Is it the land in the Middle East? I say no. It is in the highlands of Ethiopia. With hours of groundbreaking research, this book brings in a new revelation, and it will transform your understanding of African history and its connections to the ancient world. It's going to remove from your mind the conditioning by the Romans of what has really happened to our past. Come with me, family, to the Ethiopian highlands and find out why this is our land. Why things have been hidden and obfuscated for centuries. We are royalty, children of the Most High. What kind of land do you expect us to have? Dried up dirt in the Middle East, or land flowing with rivers? A land full of beautiful animals flowing with milk and honey. Don't miss out on this monumental unveiling. Grab your copy today and stand on the side of truth. Visit Amazon.com or www.tailministries.com to purchase your book and join Jacoby Vale's teachings on Tail Ministries. Family, your journey to a hidden history has now begun. So family, get your copy of True Jerusalem, the Lost Kingdoms of the Israelites today. Journey to the heart of Africa, where history and legend converge to reveal the forgotten kingdoms of the Israelites and the true location of Jerusalem.